Welcome to today's episode of the Jeff Heilman Project, where we talk about things and the project of life. Today we have a very special guest star. Oh my goodness, Kayvon, you're a star now. Thank you, Jeff. Would you like to introduce our special guest?
Absolutely. And super excited. We launched this podcast a little under 2 months ago. And the first person that I could think of that I wanted to put on this show, which we've been waiting for, trying to get on the calendar, and we've been managing his travel schedule to make it work, is our guest today. He is a husband. He's a father. He's a former Cisco alum, and that's where we actually knew each other. And now an entrepreneur and very successful one at that. I want to help everybody provide a warm welcome for today's episode of the Jeff Heilman Project with our special guest, Kayvon Beringian.
Good afternoon, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Really looking forward to having this conversation. And I've been watching you from the very beginning, starting this podcast series, and I knew my time would come soon. So,
oh, dude, I'm so great. This is so sick. I'm grateful to have you on, and the fact that you've been traveling. We're going to get into a lot of different aspects of what you've been doing, but if we can, what I want to do is I want to go back to Santa Cruz, right? You graduated, what, 05, 06?
I graduated, I don't even want to say it out loud. It was 2007.
2007. Okay, very good. And then you somehow got to Cisco as your first job and started out in networks. What was that like for you in that first moment where you got the offer and you're like, okay, I don't have to be one of those college juniors or college seniors who has to struggle to try to find a job in the 6 months following graduation, to make sure that I can start making my student loan payments on time?
You know what? I'm going to dig deep and kind of recall the experience, but it wouldn't be that hard. I just remember getting turned down by Cisco about 3 times before they finally got annoyed and said, fine, let's give this guy a chance. It was surreal, right? We were, coming out of college back in 2007, I think, before things started to get a little bit chilly.
Right before it crashed.
Yeah, right before it crashed. So, very grateful that I was able to get in. I think the experience, actually the irony is, I think it was the last semester or last quarter of Santa Cruz before I graduated. You know how it is.
Yeah.
When you're
You're playing Russian roulette between partying and getting a job.
Yeah. And the irony is, I just remember this networking class that I think I had to talk my way of getting a passing grade. I was like, hey, man, I got the job in networking. This doesn't matter. We accomplished the goal. So it was a bit traumatic, but it was fantastic. I met my wife working at starting off our careers at Cisco, and we've been married for about 9 years now, and it's just been a nonstop adventure ever since.
Absolutely. And Tanya, if you can talk a little bit about meeting her and then obviously the resolve that gives you as a man, as a husband, and as a father. Like, how did having her in your corner kind of help you make the transitions through your career, which, you've had a lot of experience in a short period of time?
Yeah, I mean, it's she is my partner in crime. Coming out of the program, it was pretty obvious to me, even when it wasn't obvious to me. It was destiny that we were going to be married, and she's been my biggest ally. She's been my rock as I've made wild bets. When you're in your 20s, it's a little easier to make wild bets, but she's always been that foundation that I knew that if things didn't work out, we would be able to recover. And I think that's what's allowed me to extend myself pretty far in my career. Join companies that may have seemed crazy, and now they're public companies that are doing fantastic, and it's really changed our life. So it definitely wouldn't have been possible if I had done this journey alone. Having the power of a good partner alongside for support, financial, emotional, everything in between is invaluable. And forever grateful for her.
I love it. I think that our spouses don't get nearly enough credit when you look at the fact that, we're the ones that travel and we eat the steak dinners when we're on the road, and the in the early days, the spending on clothing and nice shoes and teeth and laser surgery if we need them, it goes to us guys a lot of times because we're in front of customers, we're traveling, we're taking the hits, but we can't take those hits and still have our kids raised and bathed and teeth brushed and diapers changed and cars gassed up and meals made without the spouses, in the cases where the spouses are staying home. Now, a lot of women these days are playing double duty, and they've got careers, and they have, maybe some domestic help, maybe not. But unfortunately, they're not able to take off the mom hat just because we've had a long day, right? And so,
I think my wife, she definitely does wear both hats, and I as much as I can try to wear both hats. But let's be honest, when you're building a startup, you're going to wear that hat less, and so it gives us purpose, it gives us a target. This is why we do it, and we hit harder, punch harder every single day.
So I'm interested because it's relevant. I mean, I know what the sacrifices were that we had to make while building startups, but what are some of the things that maybe you and your young family had to postpone until you had later success that you'd like to bring up? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, startup glamorous, like we're going to be rolling in it, but they neglect to understand that you're not going to get your tires rotated when you're supposed to get your tires rotated. You're not going to go see the dentist every 6 months. Like, what are some of the things that you could maybe share with us that you had to postpone until a later date?
Yeah, it's. I will tell you this. Maybe I'll build up to the answer very quickly. But our family, we got married about 9 years ago. We had our first kid back in 2019, and then the pandemic hit. And, that roller coaster. From a emotional, personal, mental health, and the economy. Right, it was booming for a moment, and now it's sort of turning the opposite direction. It's we did have kids probably a little bit later than we could have. Obviously, in hindsight, you're like, oh, wow, we should have had kids in our 20s. We'd be done by now. but it did allow us to.
Hey, we had kids in our 20s, and we're still got
20s,
a 5-year-old.
20s,
so.
20s, 30s, and 40s. So, yeah.
Right. But, I think one thing, especially having kids, it wasn't something we decided to necessarily wait. Let's wait until the economy or the pandemic ends. It's like no, life keeps going, and it did put a lot of strain and pressure on our family, especially when the second one showed up. But it also was an opportunity for a company like HubbleIQ, which is my company, to incorporate and to build into the changing culture around remote work. And we actually started the company before the pandemic, looking at doing research, looking at the market. And I joke around and say, God, give me a sign back in January 2020 that this is what we should be doing. And sure enough, March came around and the whole world literally went online and went remote. So
yeah, how much better for HubbleIQ could you possibly have? A sign from the heavens, a star that burns brightly all night, showing you remote workforce, IT, support, engagement, and satisfaction might be important for everybody, like starting on March 15th, 2020.
That's exactly it. But let me tell you, one thing, when you tell the story, I always want to highlight or remind everyone listening to the story that that period of time was terrifying. So we're not sitting there, sharpening our fangs, thinking that the market's going to eat up what we have. By the way, we were midway to getting to production. We were building the plane when it needed to take off. So I think if you're like a Zoom or some of these other companies that were ready and waiting with their sail open, of course. But for us,
right. But they were already up and running and ready to catch the customers falling out of the sky. You guys were still building the baseball mitt.
We were still building it, but we knew we had to pack up the bag and get out there. But at the same time, manage our mental health because again, it was a scary period of time. We were afraid of everybody. We were afraid to go outside. We just didn't have information. People were dying all around us. So, trying to keep our cool, trying to raise this new human, or actually, this is right before we had the new human. We had a new human, actually, a 2-year-old, without childcare. Gosh, I'll never forget that 6 to 8 month period. But again, going back to what I talked about earlier, it's having that rock, having that person balance you out, keep you going through the tough times. There are a lot of tough times, so that we could even have this conversation today about HubbleIQ. I'm forever grateful. So.
Well, it's almost as if the polio vaccine was being made while people were dying of polio. You're not, you're not excited that people are sick and dying, but you're glad to be a part of the process that's going to put people back together. So good job. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk for a minute. I want to come back to mental toughness. And kind of how you survive. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about your career path. And this is a huge compliment to you, by the way. I think a lot of people look at their career path and they say they go point A, point B, point C, and it's very linear and very easy to follow. And your career path, you started out in pre-sales in network and unified communications, and then you go to be a TME at Cisco, which is not a traditional progression in your career. And then you end up going from that to ServiceNow and getting into product marketing and then product management, which of course makes perfect sense for what you're doing right now. Where did the light bulb for you go off and say, oh, I need to take this path for me, for my career, because of what I want to do? And this is the step that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, look, as an SE or SA or whatever company you're at calls it, our job is to. I always think about office space when I describe it. Right, it's to take the requirements from either the customers and then walk it over to the engineers.
And you walk it over to the engineers, yeah.
Because we got people skills, right? We're people, and so, but to kind of peel that back in a more serious way, it forces, as a young buck out of college, right? I'm coming in trying to convince these CEOs to use me as their trusted business advisor. Like, what kind of advice can I give? I'm fresh out of college, right?
Right.
I'm trained, but you kind of jump into the fire. But look, what I realized early in my career is that I had affinity for simplifying things. To me, this whole engineering, I graduated engineering, and then the technical pre-sales seemed really hard. But when you start to get confident about what you're actually selling in these solutions, you realize, wait a minute, no, it's not hard. It's actually not. The hard part is simplifying it, and no one's doing a good job of making it easy for people to approach it, for people to understand it, right? And that's actually a failure on part of the people selling the solution, the software, almost like a way of justifying their position as a really technical solution, a technical resource to add value. I was never convinced that was the case, and I just gravitated into the world of taking these complex things and just simplifying it so that it could be more accessible. Right, I was inspired by I remember telepresence, right, the little video solution.
Right,
not little, it was massive, but the beauty of it is it's extremely complex to power, but anyone could walk into a room and press a button and use it.
That's
and
right.
It worked, and it was awesome. You move on with the rest of your life. And I was like, okay, that's how it should be. And the technical details should be abstracted. So as I went from pre-sales to the technical marketing and the digital media team and to product marketing and product management, I just sharpened that blade, man. I sharpened it, and I realized, no, anybody who needs to understand a technical, concept needs to be explained it in the context that's important to them. It's not about the bits and the bytes, right? People want to debate me about bits and bytes all the time. Like, okay, hold on, is that even important to what we're really talking about here? Let's just understand the objective of this conversation, and let's talk in big Lego blocks, man. Right? And I can get deep. We can go down to the zeros and ones, but it can be very, very simple. And that was really inspiration for starting HubbleIQ. I actually, I don't know if we want to get into it, but
we want to get into it for sure. That's a great segue because ultimately, for our audience listening out there, if they're thinking about HubbleIQ, they want you to do exactly what you just said, which is, and as technologists, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we don't want to. We might feel belittled by somebody saying, "Can you just give me a 20-second soundbite?" But in reality, if we're really serving our customers, if we're really customer obsessed, and we'll ask about your partnership with Amazon in a minute. If we're really customer obsessed, we want to give them what they want, and what they want is a 20-second soundbite. Then we ought to be ready to give it to them. So let's dig into it. Give us the 20-second or 2-minute soundbite on HubbleIQ and where you're starting to see success and traction in the market.
Yep. So I'll give you the 20-second, 15-second what is it, but I actually want to tell the story of how we sort of identified this space. We're automating tech support. Plain and simple. We're automating it because, for one, we don't believe that tech support, needs to be gate kept by people who can afford it. People can afford to get help. A lot of people don't have access to help. The Geek Squad wants to charge you a lot of money for it. It's
right.
not that complicated. It can be automated. So that's what we're doing. And it's so important today because everything is digital. Everything is online. And people who know how to use these digital tools to be digital citizens and have good digital hygiene are the ones that have the driver's license to get on the internet superhighway, whatever you want to call it. If you don't have access, if you don't have skills, literacy, forget it. You're going to be left behind. And so we want to turn that into a black box. And we think, what this remote work revolution has done has put a lot of people, a lot of things, a lot of industries on a digital platform. And I want to make sure, my co-founder and I, Belinda, who I do want to talk about as well, we want to make sure that if you live in a small village in Lusaka in Zambia, if you live in suburbs of San Jose, you have the same ability to access the online opportunities as someone who lives in the hills of Palo Alto or in a place where they do have that access by default. And that's what we do at HubbleIQ. And that includes a lot of people that get access to healthcare, right? Everything's online now. You talk to your doctor on your phone. That means getting an online education, right?
Right.
Things are kind of going back to school, but in the higher ed, a lot of education and a lot of learning happens online. It could be working a remote job that you may not be able to afford physically, driving to or living near, right? That's an opportunity that this digital revolution has offered access to. So we want to be that black box that ensures that connection to that opportunity works like a light switch, no matter what.
So, Kayvon, and I will not ask you about numbers of customers or
Sure.
revenues or any of that stuff. You're a private company, you deserve your autonomy in that area. But if we look at and privacy as well, it's important. But if we do look at stages of businesses, right? If we look at inception with an alpha release someday in the future as being the time where you go hit up mom and dad and some uncles, and then you transition from that to your GA product, 20, 25 customers if you're going B2B, or maybe 300 customers if you're B2C, and you start looking at rounds of funding, Series A for anywhere from $1 million to $5 million, and then you look at kind of stage 3 would be 100 enterprise customers or 1,000 consumers. Can you talk to us a little bit about where, without giving too much away, where are you in the growth phase and kind of what's coming next for you, and also some milestones of things that you've hit that you're really proud of personally, because as you are co-founder and CEO of the business, I think that we have to celebrate the wins. If you listen to Andrew Huberman, make the touchdowns, but don't have the end zone dance, right? Where are you in your milestones, and what's coming next?
Sure. So let's see how I can answer this as vague a way as possible.
That's right.
So we are in production. We do have paying customers on every corner of the planet. We have end users using our software in, I think, every country except probably about 5, and you can probably guess which 5 those are.
Yeah, I'll refrain, but I'm with you.
Yeah, I don't know every continent except Antarctica. I don't know if you have anyone in North Korea or
right.
some of those countries. But so that in terms of stage of adoption, we're humming along. We are a product-led solution, so we have been able to scale ourselves pretty far and pretty fast. I want you to also understand we are about a 4-person team. We do have some folks that we contract some work to, but we're a very lean and nimble company. We're very efficient, and I think in this day and age, it's very important to be lean because a lot of things are changing with the generative AI. Sort of changing how companies operate.
Yep.
Again, the economy, sort of slowing down a bit. So it just allows us to be very agile in adapting to this constantly changing world. And that's what happens when you're born in a pandemic, right? Those muscles are
You're already flexing them before you come out of the womb.
From day one.
Yeah.
We're not born during a frothy time. We were born through the rose bushes, as I say. So it's made us tough. As in terms of the stage of company, we are a seed stage company. We did close our seed round back in I think it's October of last year ish. We actually haven't announced that yet, so we'll start making a lot more noise. Maybe call this the pre-announcement. But
sure, it's exciting.
But we make selective noise because we're just focused on creating product and utility for empowering people to thrive in this digital world. And so we'll be ready when we're ready to talk more about that. But right now the market is pulling us forward, and at the end of the day, it's between us and the market, and everything else we think is noise.
What there's so much buzz right now going on with OpenAI and ChatGPT and ChatGPT 4. Can you talk a little bit? If you look at scale, I think a lot of people out there, I think most people are not paying attention to ChatGPT. I think a handful of people are evangelizing on it and getting on the bandwagon early, and then I think there's a lot of people who are starting to play with it, but they don't really know what are the commercial impacts in my business for this. And with a small team, I've got to think you've got to be putting ChatGPT and AI first and foremost in your copywriting and your evangelism without giving away any trade secrets. Can you talk a little bit about what's been going on at HubbleIQ in the last 6 weeks since ChatGPT went live?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I'd be lying if I told you we weren't, discussing it seriously.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. When it came on my radar, I think late last year, I didn't think, oh, this is cool. I don't have to work so hard. That's the last thing I thought.
You always work hard, Kayvon. That's not an issue.
No, I'm actually working harder, right? I actually have two opinions about it. One is I think right now it's going to, cause a lot of restructuring from an operational standpoint. People need to really rethink, how they, what their role is and how this will affect it. As a networking guy, I always believe with more bandwidth comes more demand. So I don't think it's going to, make people's jobs necessarily easier or faster. I just think it's going to, create a demand that's more rapid, and it's already happening here, where we don't have to take a week to get some, deliverables out. We can do it in a day. Right, we can do it. And so what does that mean? Oh, okay, we just do it in a day and we just sit on our hands for the rest of the week? Absolutely not. Now we got to get 7 deliverables out at the time that we were going to take 1 deliverable out. So from an operational standpoint, yeah, it will require hard evolution and roles. The beauty of being a 2 or 4 person company is that it puts us on steroids. It doesn't mean I don't need to hire people, because I can't think about every function of our business. I need people in seats. Now, do they need layers and layers underneath them? Maybe not, right? And that's the conversation, the question we can have. We have to be more selective of who we hire. So there's the operational efficiency side of it. But the part that really, I think, I wouldn't say excites me, I'm cautiously excited about, is how it's going to change our technology roadmap. What generative AI does for a company like HubbleIQ is it creates really a shortcut to AI. I think that's the opportunity. I mean, I'm looking at what Amazon's releasing with the Bedrock offering and some of these more consumer-friendly LLMs, large language models that are popping up, and it just really, lowers the barrier for us to create some incredible user and end user customer experiences. So, but it also lowers the barrier for others to do the same. So there's opportunity and there's risk. The opportunity is we can go faster. The risk is if we don't go fast enough, not just the big guys with big pockets can move into our space, but we also see these smaller teams, these folks that are laid off, that are incredibly talented, banding together and coming after us and moving faster.
Yeah, and look at the tectonic plates that are shifting at Google and Microsoft right now. Like what we look at is early on. Of course, they've been looking at these things for probably 2 or 3 or 4 years, integrating into speech recognition, natural language processing, et cetera, in order to make it even more valuable. But boy, to see that much money coming from these large companies, immediately following the press releases for GA is just insanity to me.
They don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. They have to be the first. And here's the thing: it's the impact this can have is not just okay. How about all these startups that are now just prompts, right? And I can share my view on where we stand on sort of that spectrum. But I will say a lot of companies out there, a lot of cloud platforms that to me as a product person and a technologist, I really never saw some of these platforms as more than this might sound vulgar, as more than spreadsheet scripts with really nice interfaces.
Right.
But and fantastic marketing. But a lot of these companies with multi-billion-dollar valuations are now prompts on ChatGPT or whatever generative app you're using, and how they're going to evolve and adapt I'm sitting on the sidelines watching and waiting, because if they don't, there'll be prompts and a startup can undercut them on price and offer the same solution, rebuild their service. You saw that guy who rebuilt Angry Birds using generative AI in an hour, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, in a matter of days, right? I mean, it's just.
So that's not just a startup thing to worry about. These big companies are about to be, fundamentally uprooted if they do not adapt, and how they should adapt. Everyone's watching.
Well, and I heard a quote, and Jessica's got a comment. I'll tee up following mine, but I heard a quote the other day that was perfect. Is that AI is not going to get rid of your job, right? That's a fact. It's people using AI that are going to get rid of people's jobs. It's the actual human connection to AI and what they could do, the work of 10 or 20 or 30 people. Those are the people. So, should we be afraid? Should we be worried about playing defense? I don't think so. But on the same side, I think that anytime you have technology that automates, what you end up with is a vacuum in the area of craftsmanship. So with the advent of high-tech large manufacturing for automobiles, for example, there is a sine wave that toggles back and forth between quantity demand, I want a low-cost, fuel-efficient car, with quality demand, which says I want electric windows, power steering, and wood paneling. And then it flips back to where, hey, I had 2 Toyotas and now I bought a Lexus, to where now I want 2 or 3 Lexuses, one for my wife, one for my daughter, and one for myself. And everybody has wood paneling and power steering. And so this sine wave just continues throughout all of eternity, toggling back and forth between quantity demand and quality demand. And what I think ChatGPT does, and correct me if you're seeing something different, but I think it starts the sine wave on a tip toward the other way with regard to quantity. And I think that's going to open up a lot more pottery and handwritten books and hand-painted easels, because ChatGPT can't do those things.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly it. And I mean, everything that we sort of value now becomes a commodity. We want what everyone doesn't have, what can't be automated out. It's going to shift the other way for sure.
Totally. So the ETCs.
Is it going to be? Does everyone in the workforce today, are they ready to readapt and readdress? I think this could force folks out of the job market, and I'm looking at this as someone in the middle of my career, thinking, okay, all right, we got to do this again. I have the energy. Let's go.
That sounds like somebody ready to retire, Kayvon. You're in the beginning. You're in the beginning of your career.
But then I looked out at my kids, and I'm thinking also, okay, how do I prepare my kids for this new world? It's not just a matter of, don't let them use the iPad. They can't do this. Like,
right.
We need to give them tablets, and we need to start training them on how to be efficient. And look, when they go to school, it's not going to be, hey, do calculus and figure out these, quadratic equations. That's not calculus, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But instead, it's going to be start a business. You have all
start
these tools
a business.
In front of you. Start a business. That's
right.
That's your assignment. All the other things.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Jessica had a question for you.
So, Kayvon, for the last few weeks with the Jeff Heilman project, we've been going through Jeff's checklist, and we've done, as you mentioned, we've done, faith and other things, order.
A secular approach to
Yeah,
faith. Let's be clear.
it's a overall. What does faith? It takes faith to build a business. It takes belief, I guess. If you want to take if you want to take a non religious point of view, you could say belief, but. Needless to say, my question to you is, we've been going through this checklist, this like major manifesto that Jeff has, and he's been going through and he's been showing us, okay, these are the things that I have and that I need to check off by the end of the day in order to achieve some form of work-life balance with my mental health and resting and stuff. So my question to you, as a father, as a business owner, as a startup, as an entrepreneur, as someone that I'm sure has their mind going all night long and all day long. What do you have some form of a checklist or daily routine or some sort of a meditation practice? Like, how are you managing babies and wife and business and, a 3-person, excluding you, a 4-person business that's, I'm sure, monopolizing you all the time? How are you getting your way through that? In this, without having to use ChatGPT, because it can't do everything for you. So,
Right.
so how are you finding peace in the storm right now?
Finding peace in the storm is incredibly difficult for me. Probably right now more than ever. I'll tell you why. We're displaced from our home. We're rebuilding. We're doing some remodeling. So we don't live at our house right now.
There you go.
The world's opened up, so we're traveling. I have a 2-year-old that is embracing the twos. They call them the terrible twos. So, it's hard. I don't know if I have the routine. I actually had a routine, but the recently the world is sort of taking the best of me, and I feel the impacts of it. I don't feel as sharp or as high energy as I used to with a routine. And I will tell you, what I'm doing now is just having this conversation with my wife to try to figure out how to create this routine, because it's so important. It starts with sleep, which I think that's the issue I have, because my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old are still waking me up throughout the night.
They might not be crying in the middle of the night, but they're certainly climbing in bed with you, and then somebody went to the bathroom in the middle of the night, right?
Like that, the whole, I'm gonna wake up at 5. Tomorrow's the day. We're gonna start this routine all over again, and you get the head start, and then of course you get 3 hours of sleep the night before, and that doesn't happen. My team is actually, they're East Coast and in Europe. So, as soon as you open your eyes in the morning, everything is waiting for you. And it is hard to be disciplined to say, look, you're going to wait. Everyone has to hold off until I get my 1 or 2 hours of my self time. And so we're working through that, and it's a lot of therapy with my wife to figure out how we can kind of optimize our life during this influx, because without it, things just kind of suffer. And I think for me, it's just being really, I'd say, going easy on yourself, right? I acknowledge that I'm a human being. My wife's a human being. I see these folks on TikTok saying, I wake up at 2:45 in the morning and I work out 10 hours and do this. And you're like, no, you don't have kids, or you're using something to help you do that. And so, it's just this is going back to my wife. This is part of where she helps me to kind of sort through and manage. She's not always trying to solution, but she helps me sort of reflect on ways that I could be better. And it's a continuous thing, and it's not something that is done in a stable environment. Things are constantly changing around you. You have to adapt. You have to evolve. But health is important. There's a lot of non-work responsibilities we have, and sometimes you got to make decisions, and just live with them.
Tell me about what you got from your trip to one of my favorite towns in the world is New Orleans. You guys were just in New Orleans here a couple of weeks ago. What was your takeaway from that, from an aesthetic standpoint, from a recovery standpoint? Talk about that trip if you can.
Sure. So we were in New Orleans, and we were actually in Chicago last week, which I think was a bit more interesting. Both of those trips were in the telehealth, telemedicine space. We're getting pulled into some interesting healthcare use cases, and I'll explain why. So going back to what HubbleIQ does in this case, when I say automating tech support, we use a lot of data in order to anticipate and manage poor digital experience for telehealth video visits, essentially.
Right.
So we want physicians to not play tech support. We want them to be physicians, and we want the end user, the patient, to really focus on the call. And when you're delivering healthcare over the internet, which is really hard, we take that for granted.
Yep.
And you're delivering it to rural areas where you really don't control the infrastructure. You don't control that user's internet provider. You don't control their home Wi-Fi. You don't control their device. You're just sort of throwing a football into the darkness and hoping that someone catches it. And in healthcare, the risk is really high. If you're not in a clear and secure, link, or chain of technology to the person you're trying to provide healthcare to, that could be the difference between life and death. You say take 3 pills and they hear 5 pills. But that's something that you can't mess around with. And so I want to actually share a use case.
Please do.
One of our clients that really inspires me. We work with a suicide hotline agency or nonprofit out in the United Kingdom, and they have agents all around the region. So in the United Kingdom, Scotland, Ireland, they hire from all around the country. They're all remote. And they use HubbleIQ to monitor the digital experience of each of their agents. And when HubbleIQ catches an issue proactively, right? We want to keep the user out of it. We're just watching to make sure that they are in a place where they can be successful at work. If we see that there's an issue that is preventing them from doing that, whether it is they don't have access to the VPN service, their device is running slowly, their Wi-Fi has been cutting out there. In this case, their British Telecom has been spotty, right? We're running all of these things for the user as if we're like the tech support Clippy. Let's think about it that way. We actually drive a workflow to get that user out of the call queue. Because the last thing you want to do is route a call to somebody who can, suicide hotline call to somebody who's not in a place to technologically to help that person.
Wow.
They can't call back. You can't expect them to call back and get routed again. So they have to be very aggressively proactive about providing that service and making sure that if that person has the courage to pick up the phone, ask for help, you cannot lose that opportunity because of a technical issue. That's because we live on a digital world now. It has evolved.
How long have you been engaged? And I don't want to have you mention any names if you don't want to, but what's your client in that area? How long have you been engaged? And can you tell us a little bit about, some of the successes you've seen, maybe just around the quality of service, I guess, because that matters, right? When it's life and death.
Sure. Yeah, obviously we're dealing with health, and I have to be a little bit careful about, saying names. But they've been our client for a couple of years now.
Fantastic.
They found us. They were one of our first inbounds. We are a bit product led, but they were an inbound, and
right.
Some of the successes they've seen is they're able to, with our software, they can tell if there's an application outage. Right, they have their tools that they use, and from every agent's perspective, I think it's about 1,500 agents all around the region. They can tell if there is an outage with one of their services, whether it's a VoIP service, whether it's the VPN service, whatever it is, because HubbleIQ is giving them that information from the end user's perspective. And end users move around, by the way, right? They're not sitting in one spot. They're kicking that laptop and they're going across town. They're going to other places.
Yeah.
But if there is an outage, they can tell immediately who's affected by it. They can tell if it's related to an individual user's Wi-Fi. They can tell if it's the folks only in Ireland are having this issue. It's because the load balancer on Amazon or whatever is having issues. Upgrade that, right? They can do all of these awesome workflows before anyone picks up the phone to complain. They're seeing it proactively and in real time.
Yeah.
And that's really what my vision was, or our vision was for his company, was to get to that point. Because if you look at an awesome platform like ServiceNow, right? I worked on some of the core engines that power ServiceNow back in the old days, and I always thought there was a gap between those workflows, all that automation, just doing what automation does, and the end user having to report these problems. It's like even like ChatGPT. If you give it bad information, you're gonna get bad information out. If this agent doesn't have the ability to articulate why their quote unquote computer is broken and they can't do their job, because they're not a technician like we all are in Silicon Valley, then all that automation and all that workflow technology isn't effective. And you have to spend a lot of time fighting with that user, the 20 questions, trying to remotely, blindly, accurately triage their problem across infrastructure that you have no control over, you don't own. This wasn't a problem when we were in the office, because at the worst case, and I used to do this, you could walk to that user and bang their computer a few times and then go back to your desk. That user is not going to be on the other side of the planet. There's no way that you're going to be able to see what they're experiencing, and we provide that visibility so that it just really seals that gap that still exists today in the market with all these tools. And that's why we started this company. We're like,
well, and the fact is that you're still excited about it. You're coming up on year 5. You're a young man, and you know, in your 30s.
5
still.
years. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Do I have the dates right? It's 4 years and 9 months, right?
I guess so. Yeah, man. Time flies. You're having fun.
Yeah, and you're still excited about it. Can you talk? What can you share publicly about? And I'm only going based on what I've seen that you've posted already on LinkedIn. What can you share with us about your partnership with Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we partnered with Amazon late last, I think it was mid last year. They admitted us into this accelerator program. It was an inaugural accelerator called the Impact Accelerator Program, and they scout startups from all around the world. I think for the first group, they had almost 3,000, sort of qualified applications. And they picked, I want to say it was 24 or 25 startups. This was a group of Black founders or Black founded companies. They go through different categories. I think they just launched the Latino Latinx cohort recently, and they did the women female founders prior to that. And it was an incredible program. I think as a Black founder, my co-founder Belinda Baddorf, you'll see her on our website. She's also African, or she's from Africa. I would say African American, but she's actually American African. I think that's what you call it in that case. Apologies, Belinda.
I'll call it whatever you call it.
But in all seriousness, she is from Zambia.
Wow.
Her story is incredible too. If we ever have a chance to get her on the show.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, she was selling textiles in the town, and her journey into tech and into the U.S. I mean, when I met her, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the grit I need to get this thing off the ground. So I'll table that for now.
I love it.
But so as Black founders, I think it was really inspiring, one, to see Black founders doing some incredible things that are solving hard problems. Like hey, we could solve these deep technical stuff. Like half of the startups, I was like, I have no idea. It's way too technical for me. But you're killing it because the numbers are adding up. So so that was one of the huge benefits of that program was developing the network in the community. They actually did give us a grant, non-diluting grant, which I mean, by any standard, it's a vote of confidence, and they're really mission driven in this program. And in addition to grants, they gave us a lot of credits, but beyond just the monetary advantage, they gave us a platform. They're very supportive. I still work with those guys, they've plugged us into Amazon's ecosystem. Amazon does everything. So whatever your business is, Amazon's probably in it. And we're having conversations with several groups at Amazon to enhance their offerings and to use them as a channel. So incredible partner. Couldn't be happier to partner with them. And they've really given us some credibility in this market to allow us to accelerate faster.
Yeah, that's the main thing, right? Is to see that you've been identified as the best of the best in what you're doing, and able for them to bring some visibility into what you guys are building. I think I want to let you know I'm proud of you, right? I've seen you go through a very difficult transition coming through COVID, being a parent, quitting your job, going all in on this business, and you've stayed the test of time. I would love to ask, as we wrap with a couple of closing questions here, can you tell us what is it like for you to go from W-2, part of a successful startup that becomes a multi-billion-dollar public company with ServiceNow and and then other ones. But now you're part of the Silicon Valley startup CEO co-founder community. What has that meant to you personally, emotionally, spiritually? Yeah. So just I guess the question is as you've transitioned from W2 into now part of the Silicon Valley folklore and history of this valley and history of building your own startups and being self-employed and following the dream, what advantages has that opened? What doors are you seeing? How has your network changed by literally entering in from being an observer, right, that we all are on the W2 side, to actually a participant?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, I think it you know, when you're sitting in this chair as a founder, CEO, founder, co-founder, you appreciate the moving parts. There are a lot of moving parts that you don't see otherwise. There's a lot of uncertainty, obviously, going from a W two to to running your own business. It's incredibly fulfilling. It makes you you realize how vulnerable you need to be to do this.
Totally.
And you know, it compounds by your family situation. A lot of kids or younger folks, or in their family at least, do this, and they have fewer liabilities, fewer responsibilities. This is not just something that I'm going through, but I'm bringing my family along for the ride. And I kind of go back to having a partner is super important. But like, I am thrilled, dude. It is exciting. It's like to be able to even have the chance to do this. I don't take for granted, and even on the hard days, you think about that. You think about how this is something that a lot of people around the world would dream to have the opportunity to do. And we afford it because my wife and I, we've been in the industry for 20 plus years, right?
Yeah.
And it's given us the chance to do this. And it's not just me doing this, by the way. It's my wife doing this too.
It's your kids
Just like
doing
my
it. Your kids are
co-founder and
doing
my
it
kids.
when you're
They're on
traveling.
the same journey.
Yeah.
The people we meet along the way, the example that I can set for my kids, the fact that I can do this for a while because we've had success in fundraising. uh, it makes puts the hard times in context, and it gives you the confidence that, look, man, there's going to be a lot of problems that just need to be solved, and you solve them. Think about the next problem. I'll give you a great example. We were affected by the Silicon Valley Bank situation, right? And look, but like I said, we were growing through the thorn bushes, and I just always constantly hedging on a solution. I didn't think we weren't going to get through it. Maybe for a moment, I was like, wait a minute, is this even possible? Like, but I snapped out of it. I said, okay, we'll get through it. And I'm already thinking about the next set of problems that are gonna approach us, and the next set of problems,
and they're coming. If you don't think they're coming, folks, get ready.
And they're gonna be bigger.
Yeah.
And so I always put it in context, but just gratitude for having the opportunity to do this, to be a part of this community. That's just gets me fired up to knock out the problems in front of us, and to keep solving forward. Right.
Totally. That is
forward, solving forward, and yeah.
That is such a
fantastic.
Please go ahead.
I want to pay it forward. I just want to say one more thing. Being part of the Black Founder cohort, being able to carry this role gives me a sense of responsibility as well. Right. I don't want to hold on to this, move up, and just forget about the folks that helped us get there. Right. I want to set an example. That motivates me to get up every day and solve these issues, solve these problems, and move forward. Is I want to set an example, not just for my kids, but other folks in our community, to see that, hey, we, especially as Black founders, can do it too.
I love that. You mentioned something a minute ago about vulnerability, and Elon Musk said that when your friends get a business started, you should get together and have a baby shower for them, because it's like you're having a baby, right? And you think about my wife's had some baby showers, and you think about how vulnerable a pregnant mother is when she's at 7.5, 8 months, and she's just got one more month to go, and it's the hardest, and it's the hardest to move around, and it's the most anticipation for all the all the things coming, and is everything packed, and are we ready to go to the hospital? And she's vulnerable, right? And as a startup founder, you are vulnerable. There's no way for you to bring HubbleIQ into the world without being willing to sacrifice yourself for a season in order to bring this new creation into the world. And so vulnerability is such a great, it's humility, it's vulnerability, it's gratitude, all coming together with a sense of teamwork and focus to try to make the thing work. And so where as we conclude here, first of all, I just want to say I'm proud of you. I think you're a rock star. You're a who's who in my book, under four, a who's 40 under 40 for Silicon Valley. And if we can ask, where can people find you? How can they find out more about you, about your co-founder, and about HubbleIQ?
Yeah, look, really appreciate you having me. I'm going to run into I always see you at airports, by the way.
We do, yeah. We're always at airports. We're on airplanes. I saw you on a Southwest flight down to San Diego one time.
It was San Diego, up to Orange County, I think Seattle once.
Yeah.
So just we'll see you at the next airport. But look, if you want to get in touch or learn more about HubbleIQ, visit www.HubbleIQ.com or Google it. You'll find me on LinkedIn, Kayvon, or just type in HubbleIQ. It's a pretty distinct name, and we have some interesting resources. We have a free tool if you're just a remote worker that's tired of your Zoom calls, maybe not working. We do have software that you can use to support yourself, to engage with your IT departments with less friction. So check it out, and if you have any questions or if you're interested in learning more, you can find me at Kayvon at HubbleIQ.com.
Awesome, bro. Thanks so much for joining us. I could not be happier to have you as one of our first entrepreneurial guests and co-founders on the show, and just super proud of everything you're doing, and we'll catch up down the trail.
Appreciate it. Keep on hammering. Love the podcast, and good luck creating a new empire.
Awesome. Awesome. Any closing words, Jessica?
No, just have an awesome week, and we can't wait to hear more about your successes in the future. Great job.
Yep. Thanks, Kayvon. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.